So idiot Trump is now suing the Des Moines Register and Ann Seltzer, who's a pollster, a very good pollster, because they got a poll wrong that had Kamala Harris up by 3 points at the end of the election. So it was predicted that Trump would win Iowa. So this poll got some news, got some attention, made some of us very happy. Trump, now emboldened by ABC News capitulating to them in a lawsuit that they could have won, actually a lawsuit that should have been thrown out just on its demerits. It never should have been allowed to happen. It should have just been tossed out of court. But now Trump is emboldened. He's suing everybody. He wants to do the thing where you scare everybody off. He's been doing that his whole life, as we know. And there are some people that stand up to him and actually do okay and win. So by suing a pollster for getting it wrong, there's a lot of pollsters, I guess, who should be sued, right? Because a lot of pollsters get it wrong. And in fact, you've heard me talk about this if you subscribe to my podcast, or I've done it since I started this YouTube video and all the time all over social media. And I posted videos from experts. Polls are merely a snapshot in time. They can be instructive in terms of telling you where you need to go, where you need to fill in. They are not necessarily predictive of the final outcome. And in fact, in the business, what we usually do is you look at all the polls and they should be relatively similar. And if there's something that looks like an outlier, you want to throw out the low poll, you want to throw out the high poll. That is standard operating procedure in politics. And of course, polls get publicized, most of them, so a lot of them. So it's okay to report what the polls say. For Trump to sue the Des Moines Register and Ann Seltzer, the pollster, her firm, for getting a poll wrong and calling it election interference is about as bad as it gets. I'm running out of words to describe the shit show that Trump is and will be. But Nate Silver should be behind bars if we're going to go with that. Kellyanne Conway, a lot of wrong polls. There are pollsters who are known for telling the client what they want to hear, not even really doing polls, just kind of skewing them on purpose. And of course, Trump and his pollsters have done the same thing. So we know that Manafort in 2016 gave internal polling data from the Trump campaign to Kalimnik, which is the same as giving it to Vladimir Putin. And then Putin knew where to go to, help out. And as I've talked about many times, as you know, on election night, ABC News gave a guy from ABC News who was a big Trumper and friends with Dave Bossie, who at the time was the deputy campaign manager for Trump. He got the secret internal polling data from the media consortium at 5 o'clock and at 5:01 while polls were still open, 5:01 on the East Coast. He's telling the Trump campaign that they'd lost and where. And then over the course of the next few hours, oddly, 77 very perfectly distributed votes showed up, distributed among 3 battleground states that Trump was losing. And they knew that where the vulnerable points were and where it could be close because Manafort had given that internal polling data sometime before to Kalimnik, so illegally, obviously. So it's just odd that over the course of those few hours, Trump somehow pulled out this almost impossible, almost statistically impossible electoral college win after he'd been told he'd lost and where. And as we know, there was a whistleblower who alleges that Karl Rove once told her that if a state on election night, is within 3 percentage points, you can cheat undetected. So yeah, connect the dots, folks. I hope that this ridiculous move on the part of Trump meant to scare people, meant to intimidate people. Look at Joe and Mika going and kissing Trump's ass at Mar-a-Lago. Look at what they did. They issued an apology through David Frum off their show because he noted a couple of truths about Fox News. And so they're protecting Fox News because they understand that Fox News is the equivalent of Trump and Musk. So Morning Joe capitulated to them again. Now we have Trump suing the Des Moines Register and the pollster, Ann Seltzer. Des Moines Register did the poll. You published it for her because she was their pollster. It was different from the final outcome. There is never, ever, ever a situation where any pollster would ever say conclusively that their poll necessarily is predictive of the final outcome. In fact, every caveat is that this is a poll. It could be wrong, or things could change, or use this as a guide. But again, if it's too far off the mark, most people know to throw it out. It is not election interference, and not even close to the election interference that Elon Musk did, that Putin has done, that Trump allies have done. Come on. Manafort, Kushner, all of them. Fox News. Come on. We can't allow this to happen, folks. We can't roll over. I hope, I think we have to fight fire with fire. And as I urged earlier, I think that, well, what I hope, and I put this in a tweet, I hope that George Stephanopoulos sues ABC and Disney if they, in fact, influenced him and made him settle, or by settling hurts his reputation and his credibility. He should sue the bloomers off of them. Okay? Adam Schiff should sue Elon Musk for calling him a criminal. Sue the bloomers off of these people. We can't let them get away with it. You can't give up. By giving up and go, oh, well, the chances of us winning are really slim. Really? Maybe it is. Maybe that's the case and maybe it isn't. But by giving up, you make it worse later down the road. These are actually relatively minor challenges compared to what's ahead of us if we don't stand up to these thugs, these traitors, the authoritarians, Putin. That Trump is suing the Des Moines Register and the pollster is sickening. If there's a judge that actually lets this go through, we're really in trouble. This is something that should be tossed out on its ear immediately. Immediately. It is not serious. And in fact, I would think that Ann Seltzer could flip around and sue Trump just for hurting her reputation, for suing her for a poll that was not predictive of the final outcome of the race. Where on God's green earth is Trump getting this notion that if a poll is wrong, well, then it must be nefarious. It's worthy of suing them over. We can't let this happen. There are some things we can still do to fight back, and one of them is to keep him tied up in court. And do not let him get away with this, because if he gets away with it again, because of what ABC did, now everybody is in peril of being sued. They are now complicit in what happens next. They may have thought that they were just preserving access. They hurt journalism. They hurt democracy. They definitely have harmed George Stephanopoulos' career. He merely was quoting a judge who said Trump is guilty of what constitutes rape in the state of New York. George Stephanopoulos doesn't write the law. It wasn't his sentence. He was quoting the judge. The judge ruled. The judge stated that Trump raped E. Jean Carroll. Full stop. And George Stephanopoulos used the language that the judge used. And he and ABC News got sued by Trump. Again, the case should have been tossed out on its ear, but the fact that it wasn't, they should have gone through because ABC would have won. Instead, they pulled a Joe and Mika. They're kissing the ring. And I will be extremely disappointed in George Stephanopoulos if he remains in this job voluntarily, if he doesn't speak out. As I said yesterday, there's a lot that he and some other wealthy journalists could do now to kind of turn things around in the industry that's been pretty good to them, a profession that's been very good to them. Start another venture. Been done before. And they could probably get the money from other people too to make it something that's real at a time when we need it. Protect truth, protect journalism. Again, I think that George Stephanopoulos, if he was told, if it was against his will that ABC was settling, then he should sue them because this definitely hurts his reputation. He can sue them for that. As I said, a lot of people can sue Trump and Elon Musk and should because we don't have many tools left in our toolbox. And you see what Trump is doing to shut this all down, to shut everybody down, to shut everybody up. And each time someone capitulates, someone big, a media outlet capitulates, we all lose. We're all hurt. And what that does is makes it a lot easier for them to come after individuals, the little people like you, like me, where we're not even allowed to quote judges on YouTube or in articles or on social media. We can't give the truth. Look, I've been through this with Trump. This started with me in 2015. You have to stand up to these people. It does matter. It does matter. Because even if you don't get your way, he does back down. Trump is a bully, and he's not smart. He's just a thug. He doesn't know any other way. His dad was the same way. His kids are the same way. These people are trash. Stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. Stop thinking you can reason with them. Stop thinking they're going to do the right thing. Clearly, from his actions, the only thing he understands is brute force. So do it back where you can, while we can. What he's doing to the Des Moines Register is sickening, absolutely sickening. I'd like to see the White House Correspondents Association, the Capitol Hill Press Corps, all the professional political media organizations, basically trade associations for journalists covering politics. I'd like to see them stand together and speak out. Perhaps they could do a class action lawsuit, whatever they can do. And there is safety in numbers. They have to do it. They have to do it. But I fear they won't. Remember a few years ago when Fox News was openly telling lies and misbehaving and hurting journalism and just being as disruptive as possible. I suggested that the White House Correspondents Association, that they pull Fox News press briefing badges from the White House briefing room. Now, they can still report on politics any way they like. No one's shutting them down. But you're not owed a chair in that very small White House press briefing room. And people let themselves off the hook by saying, oh, we don't want to be petty. Now, you have an obligation to do the hard thing, even if you get criticized. It's not being petty. Okay? Kind of like when Nancy Pelosi, after the Mueller report, and she declined to impeach Trump over 10 instances of obstruction of justice, she goes, we'll let the voters, or he's not worth it. Really? That kind of language. I mean, I'm glad that she took stands and she was theatrical about things and tearing up the copy of his speech and standing up at the White House and shaking her finger at him and say, you know, it's all about Russia with you. That's great. But if you're not going to use your office and your position and the tools you have, which you have an obligation to do, you're nothing. It's just talk. And Trump knows it. Trump knows it. We have to match fire with fire, and we can. But if we aren't doing it early, we're going to lose that ability. Des Moines Register, Ann Seltzer anyway, should sue him back. That the mere suggestion of this is defamatory. There is no evidence. This suit needs to be dropped, and then she needs to sue him. The mere suggestion that she was involved in election interference by a mere poll that was different from other polls. Do you realize how many pollsters have done polls like that? People who think that most people don't understand what the role that polls are supposed to play. in politics and political strategy. Okay? And they rely on them a lot. They are instructive. Look, I've worked with many pollsters. I've hired pollsters for campaigns and different issues. When you want to poll how an issue is faring, maybe a legislative item. So I do understand this. And especially these days when it's harder to get, with cell phones and whatnot, it's a little bit harder. And Trump himself, here's the thing, I just thought of this. Trump himself is the one that tells his people to lie to pollsters. So if Trump is out there instructing his supporters to lie to pollsters, he himself is guilty of election interference. And I hope a lot of pollsters gather together and sue him, because that's what they need to do.